Recorded live.
Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. And this is the May 24th edition, 2013. Our special guest tonight is Michael Old School, spelled poorly, Mucker. And he's an artist. He's, I look at the accomplishments here. We'll run them down. However, if you'd like to take a look at his work while we're on the air, he's got his work up at worksofmike.com, no www. He's also on MySpace at www.myspace.com, SKOOLANSKI, and use the same thing on YouTube to check out his channel there, youtube.com/SKOOLANSKI. He's also a member of the Black Science Fiction Society.com website, so you can do a search here for him. And I want to say welcome, Michael. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Not bad. Let's get some preliminaries out of the way. You live in the same city as Jarvis, correct? Our administrator.
That is correct.
And that's going okay for you?
Yeah, I hide from him as much as I can.
Well, the best thing to do is try to adjust your day so that you're active when he's asleep, and then you sleep when he's active. And a lot of times you can avoid any embarrassing meetups or anything like that might happen.
Well, sometimes he doesn't sleep, so he has a hard time sleeping. So it's kind of hard to keep two people that's always awake apart.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me ask you this: where did you grow up? Here in the States?
I grew up in a couple cities. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I grew up in Lima, Ohio. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
Wow. And, what order was that?
That would be Kentucky, Ohio, to New York, back to Kentucky.
Okay, and so now you're in Tennessee, correct?
Correct.
How do you like it there?
Tennessee's nice.
All right.
Minus the cicadas.
That's right. Let's see. The East Coast ones are supposed to be kicking out this year. I think for us here in the Midwest in Chicago, the last time ours came out real heavy like that was 2007. Are those like the 17-year things that they talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think in Tennessee they happen every 7.
Oh, all right. I'm just not a bug person. Well, let me ask you this. Obviously you're a very accomplished artist. You've done a ton of things. You animate. You do all kinds of things. Like, how old were you when you started getting the bug to exploit this talent or learn your craft?
All I remember, my earliest memory, I'm not exactly sure how old I was, but I was drawing in it. So I've been drawing as far back as I can remember. So I would have to say maybe 4, 3, 5, maybe.
And did you have a very supportive household? Your parents were supportive about that? How did that all work out?
Yes. Everybody was supportive. Everybody had something for me to draw.
Well, that's pretty cool. And what about, how did that go in school for you?
In school, it was interesting because in some classes I would do artwork and no classwork, and at the end of the school year, I would always end up with a lot more art supplies than I started the school year with.
Were you like a shoplifter, or were you?
No.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, if you do art in English class, you're supposed to be doing English. Your English teacher's going to take your art supply. So if she does that on Monday, she does that Monday through Friday. At the end of the year, you're going to get a lot of stuff back.
Oh, all right. You mean they don't turn it back like at the end of the week or something like that?
No, they kept it.
Oh man, that's cold-blooded. Do you have any siblings?
Actually, I do. Wow.
Go ahead.
I was about to count off my siblings. I just recently have been reunited with my adopted family, or with my biological family. So I have a lot more siblings than I originally thought.
Mhm. And do any of them have the artistic bug as well?
My biological sisters do, but
Mhm.
the adopted family does not.
Well, that would kind of make sense, genetically speaking.
Mhm.
All right. So in school, at least early on in school, you were constantly doing things that you shouldn't in the wrong classes. Did you have like any breakout moments when you did things for school, or did you take heavy art classes in high school that really started pushing your your creative bent in a certain direction?
Well, I think in high school is when most of my artistic problems started, because I had an art teacher that came to me because at the time I was heavily into doing graffiti. She came to me and told me, I'm not going to mention her name, but she said that graffiti was one of those things that would never go anywhere and that I was wasting my time doing it. So I started doing homework in her class.
Okay.
And I did artwork in everybody else's class.
Just a little rebel or something, right? Or just contrary?
Yeah, look to the contrary. I guess that was my Huey moment.
Okay, and so now let me ask you this: did you take up in college or in a university, and then continue on with your art like that, or did you just bust on out and start doing your art immediately out of high school?
Well, immediately out of high school, I joined the Marines.
Okay.
But before high school, there was while I was in middle school, I met a woman named Miss Khan, and she was a mural artist, and she took me under her wing and introduced me to doing large scale murals at 15.
Wow.
And from there, I just kind of explored. I found other artists that were great at their craft, and almost apprenticed under them for years, and learned some of the tricks of their trade, and then just incorporated it into what I was doing.
Now, when you were these big murals, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm pretty much self-taught.
Okay, when you were doing these murals, were you doing these, outdoors, big scale, or big wall scale? How
we were doing schools. She had got in really good with the PTA, and she'd done a couple plays. She'd done a couple plays for a couple of the schools, and it kind of grew for her. Initially, they started to one school asked her to come in and do something in the library.
Okay.
That grew to her doing the library, the lunchroom, a couple of hallways, and she brought me in as an assistant. And from there, I say within maybe 2 to 3 years, we had did 15 schools.
Man, and what kind of publicity or notice or how did that get your name out there? Did you become well known as an artist? What did that do for you?
Well, everybody knew I was really into art at that time, so it wasn't one of those things where immediately, everybody recognized that I was an artist. Everybody already knew that I liked to draw. So they just said that was just the next step for what I was doing. And, but the people pushed. What you going to do next? How big are you going to go next? So, it was still encouragement, and pretty much the people that were around me also helped push me to help me challenge myself.
Mhm. Did you get recognition from the school board or anything like that?
I got a little. But it was just maybe a mention. It wasn't it wasn't anything like they had a day just for for me or anything. Because she was a hired artist that they brought into the school, and basically I was just her assistant.
Wow.
But I learned a ton from her.
Mhm.
And what I learned from her pretty much transitioned and incorporated into everything I've done from that point.
That's pretty cool. At least a lot of people, at least the street people, the PTA, some of those other people, they did know that was your art, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
And
yes,
of course,
did.
no money for that, right?
Actually, no, I was paid for that. I was
you
paid.
were?
I did get paid. Yes, I did get paid for that. she got paid. She got paid really well for doing those.
Okay.
Just because of the fact that the original school, or the very first school that we did, there was so much praise behind the work that we put into or there was so much passion that we put into the artwork itself that, all the schools wanted it. So the schools basically were competing to who would be able to pay the most in order to get her to come into the school first.
Wow. So, you turned pro right there in high school.
Right there in high school, 9th grade.
That's great, man. Now, you went into the Marines. I'm thinking, did you get to do much, along the creative artist field other than, the camouflage that you might be applying to yourself or anything like that?
Well, in boot camp I did. I got a chance to paint the platoon flag. We painted the bugle stick. Little small art projects, drawing tattoos for other Marines. But I really didn't get back into my art until after I got out.
And
just because there really was no time. It was, this is your rifle and this is your gun. That's pretty much all I had time for.
Well, yeah, you don't normally think of the Marines as someplace where you do arts and crafts like that.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so you get out of the Marines. You're about how old then?
I'm 43 now.
Okay, and then
when I got out of the Marines, I was 22.
All right, so at the age of 22, I'm sorry, at the age of 22, then you started in regaining your creativity. What did you do when you got out, and how did you transition back into that?
Well, when I got out, a good friend of mine owned a T-shirt shop, and before I'd went into the Marines, I'd become pretty skilled with an airbrush. So when I got out, my friend immediately was like, "Hey, why don't you come in and do airbrushing out of the shop and see exactly how it works out?" And that went well. And I ended up being in his shop for 2.5 years, and then I left his shop and then ended up moving to Tennessee and opening up another shop.
That's pretty cool. Now, do you have a shop in Tennessee now?
Actually, I'm working out of a body shop. What I do now is so different because I do a combination of my canvas paintings, which I do out of my studio. Then I do the animation at my studio as well, but I do custom airbrushing, by request out of an automotive shop.
Now that's pretty cool. I've seen some fabulous art. Back obviously when I was growing up, they put all the best art on vans and things like that.
Right.
Do you do mostly cars, vans, and is this commission work? Do people ask you what to do or to do their vehicle?
Yes, I get random phone calls for random things. The last project that I did just recently finished up was an Incredible Hulk themed motorcycle for a race enthusiast. And what we did was I split the bike straight down the middle. Mm-hmm. One whole side of the bike deals with Bruce Banner, and the other side of the bike deals with specifically with the Hulk. And if you go from each panel on the bike, it somewhat tells a story. Starts out, they're chasing Bruce Banner down. He gets mad, turns into the Hulk, tears up the city, leaves.
And now, is that available at any of your sites to take a look at that art?
Yes.
Oh, and would that be at worksofmike.com?
Yes, it would.
All right, so that's no www, just straight up worksofmike.com to take a look at that particular piece and other pieces as well. I believe.
Yes, I have a good amount of work on there, and the work once again ranges from automotive airbrushing to wall murals, some of my digital design work, some of my animation work, and a lot of my canvas work.
Mhm. So let me ask. It appears like are you doing this full time?
Yes, I am doing this full time.
All right, so those of you out there, here's another person who's obviously chased their dream and gotten to do it full time. I'm looking at a number of things at worksofmike.com. Tell me a little bit about your animating.
Oh, my animating, wow. The animating is as you know, if you've done computer animation before, or if you know anything about computer animation is one of those things that if you're really not a true lover of the creation of it, then you wouldn't do it, because it is definitely time consuming. The animation that I'm doing right now, I'm working out of a program called Poser. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Sure, a number of people, yeah.
Okay. Initially, when I got into doing animation, a good friend of mine that's also an old friend of Jarvis named Hashim came to me with the software and asked me if I knew how to use it. And I said no. I said, but I wouldn't mind trying it out.
Sure.
I took it home, installed it on my computer, and in the process of trying to figure it out, I came up with a concept or a story in order to force me to learn all the aspects of the software.
And so how long have you been doing it? When did you start that out? About how long ago?
I started animating in 2002.
Uh-huh.
So I've been animating now for almost 11 years.
Wow. And pretty much, you've expressed that you're self-taught in almost all of this, correct?
Correct.
And obviously animating is a labor of love because it is quite labor and time intensive.
Yes.
Talk about some of the projects that you've done. Starting out, what was the kind of like the transition from the beginning to about where you are now? What kinds of projects did you take on at the beginning, and then what are the things that you've been doing lately?
Well, in the beginning, I took on basic stuff. I guess you say being able to create beautiful landscapes. Going from sunrise to sunset. Just the simple things. The transition of a 360 of an object. Just simple things in order to aid either people's websites or something to go into a music video or a commercial. I try to do as minimal as possible just because I was still learning the stuff that I was working with. Then
sure.
Here lately, the project or the one that I just recently finished, all the elements of hip-hop, I created short stories based off of the elements of hip-hop. There's a DJ battle on my YouTube page, which is based off of a video game and an actual DJ battle, which is interesting. So here lately, I just recently met a great writer a couple of days ago through Jarvis and through the Black Science Fiction Society, and we have a nice project that we're in the process of putting together right now.
That's very cool. And so what you're doing is you're providing you're animating the story itself?
Yes, I will be animating the story myself.
That's cool. Now, do you work from storyboards? Do you work from your own sketches? I mean, let's talk about your process a little bit. When somebody comes to you and says, well, like this project here, we would like to do this animated project, and they bring you in as the animator and the artist, take us from the beginning and how you get started on that.
Well, from the beginning, just like always, I'd like to find out about the environment, a little bit about the story, just enough to get my wheels turning. And once my wheels get turning, then I'll start to develop a storyboard. After developing the storyboard, then if I haven't already created some sort of a scenery or landscape, then I go right into developing the landscape from either sketches or directly 3D.
Okay.
From there, it's character development, just to make sure that the characters and the environment both fit. Then after the character development, then it goes into the motion creation and actually starting to put the story elements all together.
So, I mean, it sounds pretty regimented and very logical.
Yes. I mean, you take, I guess it's the way you turn around and you break down almost anything. With a painting, you always want to start with your background and then bring it to the foreground or bring it to the thing that will be the closest to the person. So it's kind of the same way. You pretty much break it down like a mechanic. and then put it back together.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, let's go back a little bit more about you. You're a family man, correct?
Correct.
You have a wife who's being quiet in the background, and how many kids?
I have 3 children. 3 children.
Yeah.
I have a son that's 20. They'll be 24 years old this year. I have a 13-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old daughter, and a 6-year-old grandson.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Do
like
any
to
of them?
tell that.
Well, of course not. You know, that was like me. I had the flu this year for like 3 weeks, and part A was, yeah, it's a bad flu. Part B was my doctor telling me you're not 25 anymore. I don't need the part B part to be out there.
Yeah.
So how about their creativity? Are any of them kind of looking to follow in your footsteps, or do you see elements of that kind of creativity in your kids?
Well, my son's an art teacher. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she's an actress, and she also dabbles and she does a lot of abstract art. And my youngest, she looks like she is turning into a portrait artist. She likes to draw a lot of faces.
And she has, I'm sure, the support of a doting father, correct?
Oh, of course. They have their easel stands right next to mine.
Okay. Well, that's got to be pretty cool. I mean, now if obviously you do, you know, I'm sure you're supportive. You do teaching of the kids and things like that. Do you have like the soul of a mentor in you? You know, have you taught, and what makes this hard or easy when it's your kids?
Well, I guess that goes into the whole thing with the name. You know, I'm old school. You know, I come from a generation where, you know, the lady down the street could teach you something just like she could whoop your butt if she felt like it. You know, so I mean, that's pretty much how I come at, you know, all of the kids I come in contact with. I tell them, you know, in the very beginning that from now on I'm Uncle Mike. If you say anything other than that to me, then we're gonna have a problem. And then from there, that's when the teaching. Then from there, the teaching starts.
And have you ever done any formal teaching?
Actually, well, yes, I have. I've done a lot of summer camps. Nothing. I've done a few things in a couple of schools, you know, where we go in and we actually teach an art program inside the schools. But as far as being a 9-to-5 school teacher, no, I haven't done that.
Well, I mean, it looks like you're doing full time. You know, you're obviously a full-time artist. Excuse me, and you know, as if that, and having a whole family. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. A lot of people don't realize that, you know, the creative arts sometimes are a lot harder than a 9-to-5 job.
Yes.
You know, a 9-to-5 job can often be a whole lot easier than having to you know, extract from your mind a whole artistic concept, assemble it, put it together, and have it convey exactly what you want it to convey. So, I mean, hats off to you for that. Let me ask you this. What kinds of projects do you like to do? I mean, what's your favorite kind of project to tackle?
Wow. Well, it has to be interesting first. If it's not interesting, if it's just, you know, I want to sign paint it, or hey, can you airbrush some words on a T-shirt for me? Or, you know, it has to be something interesting. For example, I had one client walk up to me while I was in my T-shirt shop before, and he said, hey, man, I want you to airbrush a bottle of water on the hood of my car, and I want the top from the bottle to be hitting a Smurf in the stomach.
Okay.
Interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, my first thought is, okay, so where did that come from inside of that person? You know what I mean?
Right. You know, so yeah, so initially that right there lets me know that person has a very creative mind, and they're not just they just don't want the ordinary thing.
Right.
That's what always draws me to a project.
Man, and so, why, did he ever explain why the Smurf? I mean, I'm just curious.
No, he never explained it. I mean, I asked him several times. He just said, well, his Cadillac was blue.
Okay.
So to a point, that kind of gave me an idea of why he wanted the Smurf to be blue, so that it would match his car. You know, but as far as any other explanation, he didn't give one.
It's always fun to find out stories.
I couldn't stop laughing anyway. I mean, it was just hilarious.
I'm sure. All right, so what are some of? Let me let people know, what was the most unusual project that you've done so far?
Oh wow! I did a Finding Nemo bathroom for a 4-month-old kid.
Well, that's a pretty precocious kid.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, me thinking in my mind, I'm like, this kid is gonna hate fish by the time he's a year old.
Mhm.
But you know.
So I'm just thinking to myself, okay, so somebody stops at the auto shop, at the body shop, or excuse me, what is it, a body shop, paint shop?
Well, either that. Well, at the time they would have stopped in the Airbrush T-shirt shop.
Okay.
Now
Somebody stops in the T-shirt shop, and they go, "Oh man, you're the airbrush guy, right? Man, have I got a project for you? I got a 4-month-old, and I want you to do his bathroom."
Yeah.
Oh, so okay, so you've done a bathroom, you've done cars, you've done T-shirts. Anything unusual? Have you ever done? Well, let me ask you this: have you done body paint for models for like fashion shows, things like that?
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah. Now, I have some fun stories, and I have some horror stories with that as well.
Oh well, let's lay it all out.
Okay, well, the fun one was in 1996. The rock band Kiss, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Sure, yeah.
They had a reunion in Texas. I was invited to come down and be one of the airbrush artists for that event. The nightmare about that is that I didn't get a chance to see what I painted, because as soon as it was done, the model was rushing out and another one was coming in. So I didn't get a chance to even sit back and look at the work. It was going in and out so fast. The other horror story, which I don't know if I can say this on the radio or not.
Well, just watch the bird.
I had to paint some man boobs.
Okay.
It was the man boobs was on a person that was in between the surgeon.
Oh, a transgendered conversion, a gender reassignment surgical patient.
Yeah, and I had to paint man boobs.
Okay.
And I mean, I was like, you know, I'm not 100% sure what I do. I was like, do I lift them up? Are you gonna pick them up? But you know, they kind of laughed it off, and they kind of lifted them up themselves. I painted under them, I painted around them, and everything was okay.
Well, that's good. I mean, at least you got to work above the waist.
Yeah.
So
I'm just gonna stop there.
Okay, fine. And so, what are some of the fun things that you really enjoyed doing that really tripped your trigger?
Let me see. I'm gonna go back on this one.
Okay.
The very first time that I started airbrushing in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, was the first weekend of my senior year.
Okay.
While I was there, the guys were all getting everything all set up, and they're like, we open up the gates, and they're like, all right, Mike, we'll see you later, and they walk off and leave. And there's like, all these, 18, 19-year-old girls running up in bikinis wanting their names airbrushed on their bikinis. So I had to stay focused, and I had to airbrush names. It was hard.
Oh, I was almost going to use that pun, but I said to myself, oh, that's not worthy. It was hard. Okay. But I'm sure you managed to go ahead and...
I had to stay focused. But the thing was, what they were trying to do is they were trying to see exactly how I would act, in a pressure situation. I was having to quote the price, I was having to ring up the customer, and I was having to produce the artwork and be able to produce the artwork at a fast enough pace to where I can get rid of the line of people.
Mhm. And I'm sure you managed to pull it off just fine, correct?
Oh, just fine. Pulled it off just fine.
Oh, man. Do you have, now, when you do projects like that, do you at least, like even with the KISS one, did you get to take any photos, images to preserve, what you had done? Do you have records of that? I mean, are you a hired gun? And I know you probably didn't see the show, but I mean, what about preserving your art or at least recording it?
With that one, I was a hired gun, and I had no time to take photos on that project.
Yeah.
There are some projects that I do not get a chance to get photos of,
right.
which even I try to make sure I get photos. But most of my projects I do have some sort of digital record or some sort of documentation.
Mhm.
Or to get stuff.
So now you've had a career. Let's see. You got out of the. When did you get out of the Marines? What year was that?
1992, right after the first Gulf War.
All right, so we've got 2 decades worth of your work. If you had to guess, how much of that is chronicled online that people can look at?
I would say maybe from 90. Well, a lot of my T-shirts are probably documented on the MySpace page because
sure.
I guess at the time MySpace was popular. So
right.
a lot of stuff was posted there. I'm not 100% sure if that page is still there or not because I haven't logged into it for a while. But Facebook has a lot of my work, and it's funny when I'm going through Facebook and I'm finding pictures of old friends with them at nightclubs standing in front of backdrops. It's
sure.
like, oh wow, I did that backdrop. It's kind of cool to see that.
How many of your murals from the school still exist?
I think maybe 4, maybe 5. Not a lot of them. But then I've done murals in 4 schools here in Nashville. So so the numbers keep going up.
And again, how did they find you to ask you to do that? Was this something that, where you went and sought them out, or did they find out you were in the neighborhood and said, hey, while you're here?
Well, a lot of times the cool thing is that I have a really good standing relationship with one of the biggest art stores in Nashville. It's called Plaza Artist Materials.
Mm-hmm. And
a lot of people call their art store and they ask the art store or they ask the manager at the store if he knows someone who is able to do any of those things. And most of the time, since I teach one of my airbrush classes there, he normally passes my name on.
Well, that's not bad. I mean, you have an advocate, you have, and you do teach. I mean, okay, I asked you before, had you been a school teacher, but how many of these classes do you do at the art store? Because I'm sure that also helps with your outreach and.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been doing the classes at the art store now for almost 12 years, and it's usually 3 classes a year.
Well attended?
Yeah. I usually try to cut the number of students in the class. I usually try to cut that off at 18 to 20, just so that I'm able to be personal with everyone that's in the class. But the class at the least in the past 4 years, the least I've had is 12 students.
That's not bad, man. I mean, to be able to pass along your art is a pretty cool endeavor as well.
Yes.
All right. So, I mean, do you like teaching? You've done it enough.
Teaching's fun, especially when you find that the students are extremely interested in what it is that you're teaching, and that they're actually learning something that's fun, but also lucrative at the same time for whatever later on passion that they develop.
Sure. And what digital tools do you find probably the easiest to work with, having started out, as a hands-on airbrusher and making the transition to digital?
My Wacom tablet, I like it a little. I'm still fighting with the airbrush attachment.
Sure.
But I can't wait to put myself in one of those in a mocap suit. I'm bubbling. I can't wait.
Well, let me ask this now. Obviously you do pickup art, you do commissioned work, things like that, and you have this one project that you mentioned that you just picked up, this animation project. What kinds of things do you think you'll be working on, let's say, through the summer that we could probably take a look at, fairly soon? What kinds of new projects do you have?
Well, I have an art show coming up with Raw Artists. That'll be June 20th. It'll be at the Cannery Ballroom. I think the doors open at 8:00. I also have a current series of paintings that I'm working on. It's called the Unrefined Collection. This is a group of paintings that I'm doing that are all based off of the children that I've come across that I've taught art to over the years. And some of these kids, I can definitely tell you, are old folks in little bitty bodies. So yeah, so when a child under the age of 14 says something to me that sounds like my grandmother, it usually makes me sit back and wonder where that child got that knowledge from.
Sure.
So the paintings that I'm creating are all revolved around the interactions with these kids. And I'm hoping to have the first 10 of those paintings done by the end of August. There's 5. The first 5 are already on my website, and the next 5 hopefully will be on there by the end of August.
Man, that's great. You're listening to Genesis Science Fiction Radio, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the May 24th edition, 2013, for those of you who are not sure what year you may be listening to. And today we're talking to Michael Oldschool, spelled O-L-S-K-O-O-L, Mucker, a graphic artist who works in both the analog and digital realms, if I can be so bold. You mentioned here, in the bio here, you got video editor. What kinds of projects have you done in video editing? Has they been ones of your making, or is this more pickup work that you've gotten and done for other people?
Well, some of it, in the very beginning, as everything, it was all my stuff.
Sure.
I've done a bunch of here lately. I've done a bunch of music videos for a rap artist here out of Nashville. His name is Chrome Jizzle. I've done some projects with another group called Money Tree Entertainment. I've done some video projects in the past with the Digital Brothers. I just try to stay as busy as I possibly can. Remember, school's in my name, so I'm trying to learn something every day.
Well, one of the things that I think I've said in the past is that creative people are always a work in progress, if they're worth anything at all, because I don't think that you can be creative for any great length of time without learning new things, being exposed to new ideas, and I think all of those things have a tendency to affect your art as well.
Yes. I can definitely agree with you on that.
Let me suggest to you that you could put, if you would, put the June event on the events calendar at BlackScienceFictionSociety.com, and also any other event that you may be in, because there's quite a few BSFS people who live in the in your area, and people may travel, and before I set out to go more than 50 feet from my house when I can get the ankle bracelet off, I do look around and see what's going on in the area to see the kinds of things, maybe I can meet up with some BSFS people. But please do, I would ask that you post all of your events in the events calendar, and anybody else who has events, so that people who have the opportunity may get to see you.
Okay. I'm going to do that right now.
So now, you made off like painting these girls' bikinis might be a horror story, or I'm sorry, did I get that reversed? That was a good story?
Yeah, that was the good story.
And the man boobs was the okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
What other kinds of fun things have you done that you think people would be interested in?
Oh, wow. Let's see.
I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah. No, not put me on the spot. I'm just trying to, there's a lot of things on my plate, so I'm trying to narrow down, I guess you would say the most fun project.
Sure.
One that does stick out over everything would be there's a good friend of mine named Mike Cavanaugh. He lives here in Nashville. He came up with an organization called PASTEL, which stands for Promoting Artistic Strength Through Logic. And what we do is we go to different schools, and we deal with a lot of the kids that they call high-risk children, and we bring art projects to them. And we, in the process of not only teaching them art projects, we also teach them life lessons. And, because a lot of the kids are either in group homes or they're in, behavioral schools or, something of that nature where that zero tolerance policy comes into play.
Well, zero tolerance policies are just excuses for people to write off whole segments of people who need a little bit more help. I mean, back when I was in school, there was no such thing. We had the bell-shaped curve of behavior in classes. Some kids were fast, some kids were not so fast. Some kids were, well, they call them ADD and things like that now, but they were just, they just thought differently, or their minds matured differently. And, now what's so sad to me is I look at how many kids they try to homogenize, making them, almost like Stepford children, either through zero tolerance policies by getting rid of the ones that are different, or they use pharmaceuticals to try to put everybody in that top dead center part of the, the behavioral curve. So, I mean, it's kind of cool because it has been my experience that you get some of the most creative ideas and creative talent out of the kids that don't fit in.
Yes.
Is that what you're finding?
Yes, I can agree. Yes, I do find that. And the reason why I find that is because I was one of those kids. So I kind of look for it.
Yeah, I actually, when I think about how many times my desk was put next to the teacher's because I didn't behave right, and I'm not saying that I'm some paragon of creativity, but certainly had I been in school today, they would have put me on, some of those ADD drugs just to try to calm me down or whatever,
Yes, I believe it.
What are some of the surprises you're finding with these kids?
They're just not listened to. A lot of the times, their home life is just not the greatest, and they're just acting out in school.
Yeah, and so if you can describe the kind of like, give us a little bit of an idea of how you guys structure the curriculum to engage them, because at first I would imagine that it's not that hard, because if it's interesting, they're going to buy, they're going to bite. But I mean,
right.
How did you guys put that together so that you could get, the maximum yield and the most creativity out of these kids?
Well, I have a painting that I created a few years ago that's called "Played Against Each Other Like Puppets."
Okay.
Which is basically a statement in regards to the new moneymaker in the United States, which to me is the prison system. Mm-hmm. So I present that painting to the kids, and I ask them, "What do you see?" And they just start telling me what they see. And from there, as they're describing or as they're breaking the painting down, the thing immediately opens up the conversations between us. Because if there's one thing that they point out, then we comment on it, or I make a comment about it, and then I turn around and I bring it into their current life.
Mhm.
And then from there, well, what do you know about that? And then from there, then I get to share something about myself.
Right.
And so now that I'm sharing something with them about me, they don't have a problem sharing something with me.
Well, they're engaged.
So that immediately,
Go ahead.
So immediately that engages, or now we're engaged. Now that we're engaged, they don't have a problem with talking to me about anything because, one, they notice I'm not a teacher. I'm just a regular person just like they are. But
Sure.
I found something within myself that allowed me to push beyond whatever troubles that I was in. Because, we all, as kids, we all do silly things, so I immediately go and be, yeah, I was a kid just like you.
Well,
So once you can identify, or once they can identify with you, there's really, not one of those times or chances that they don't get engaged.
Right. Well, one of the biggest successes that you have with teaching and with kids or mentoring is once you start teaching them, once you start treating them like people, then they respond as themselves. But if you're automatically authoritarian, if you automatically talk down to them, or if you talk to them as if they're not worthy or they're not smart enough to understand you as an adult, therefore you're going to, use baby talk or whatever with them, you're never going to be able to engage them on an effective level. How many kids do you guys mentor, like, in a year, do you think?
I say in a year, maybe anywhere between 150 to 200 kids.
Man, that's massive. That's great.
Yeah.
And how many other artists or people like you are involved in the program?
It's mainly me and the other guy named Mike Kavanaugh. It's mainly us. Every now and then we're able to get another artist to actually come in and participate. I would say for the most part we may be able to get maybe 2 or 3 different guest artists throughout the year.
And have you ever thought of, well, okay, sorry to break your thing, but one of the things that I'm doing here in Chicago, in the Chicago area, is a friend of mine who owned an art gallery. One of the things that we want to do is we want to put together a traveling, almost like a traveling classroom, because so much money is being pulled out of, PE and art programs, any extracurricular programs from elementary schools. What we want to do is we want to put together an after-school program that goes around and replaces the things that are being taken out. And, obviously this will have to be funded by donations at the beginning until you can get some metrics and people can say, oh, this is a very effective program. But, for what you've been able to do with 200 people in that short amount of time is probably more than we were going to be able to do. So, I think that that's a highly successful program. And if you quantify what you're doing, perhaps that program can be replicated in other cities and other locations. Have you considered that?
Yes, I have. We're trying to get everything worked out to where that we're in the process of trying to do that now.
And do you do this in the school, or do you have to find another location? In other words, what I'm asking is, what level of support do you enjoy from the school system or from the various schools?
Excuse me. The one thing I do love the fact that a lot of the schools are very accepting to the information or even to the program, just because of the fact of the kids that we're interacting with. Because, as you know, most of those kids, the school just doesn't want to have anything else to do with them.
Sure.
So we get a lot of once the school actually sees the kids interacting and asking when we're coming back and starts talking about us by name, then that's when the schools buy into it a lot more. And then from there, one school will share it with another. Hey, you need to bring these guys in. These guys are great. These guys are great with the kids. This is what they do. And it just opens more doors.
So do the kids start doing their own visual art?
Yes. By the I say if we are at a school and we're going to be at that school for any more than a week's time, within the second meeting of us and the kids are already doing art.
Okay. All right. Well, here's something that we decided to do, and a lot of people say, "Oh, don't give away your ideas," but one of the things that we want to do is when kids start, and we're not just talking about the visual arts, but any creative endeavor. So obviously our program is, we want to look at music and things like that. But one of the things that we want to do is for our annual report, we want to put together almost like a coffee table book that has examples of the kids' art, and paintings, things like that, and maybe even a CD and a DVD that goes with that book. And that coffee table book becomes your annual report. And not only is it a cool thing that you have, you're going to get the kids' parents to buy in on it. People can, help fund the program by purchasing that annual report for your program. And the cool thing about that is, yes, you've got all of the stats, the figures, the metrics, and those sorts of things in the back, including your budget, revenue, things like that. But you have the examples in that same coffee table book of the efficacy of your program and exactly what the kids have done. So, feel free to take that idea, because that's what we're going to do up here, every year, instead of just issuing, a folio that just has, the dry stats of what we did. One of the things that we want to do is we want to be able to include examples of what the kids have done. And think about the kids themselves. All of a sudden their art is in a book, or their music is on a CD, or their video or their animation is on a DVD. It's not that expensive to do. Getting it published is not as expensive as it used to be with publishing or printing on demand. So, that's just something that we're going to do that I think helps any kind of creative program like that. And if you decide to use the idea, it's not so much that I gave it to you, but it is very important in order to not legitimize, but to show just how your program is special. So please feel free. It's an idea that I've enjoyed. Would you ever want to maybe set up your own program within a more structured environment and maybe do a little more community outreach? Or are you really, really, really into the art part of this and what you do there as kind of like an adjunct?
I really love the art part of it. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I like getting paint on my fingers. I really do.
Okay.
It's just the creative process alone, or the creation process alone is great. It really is. I pretty much get lost in it. I can dive into some paint and come out of it 5 days later.
Man, that's pretty cool. How many hours a day do you think you work when you're kind of in the zone?
Well, in my present schedule, I work 17 and a half hours a day.
Wow.
I sleep maybe 4.
Mhm.
And then the rest is, time with the wife and the kids.
Sure. That's amazing. And what kind of output are you doing? How many projects, T-shirts, cars? What does that all add up to? Let's say in a month, how many projects do you think you might tackle in a month?
I say in a month, I may tackle maybe 15, 16 projects.
And that is prodigious.
And that goes between the analog and the digital side.
Mhm.
I did 5 business cards this past week, 3 flyers, an album cover. Well, actually, no, 3 album covers, and I'm working on a painting for a movie poster, and the painting series that I'm working on personally. Which the painting series that I'm working on it consists of 30 paintings.
Sure. So, given your enthusiasm, you don't sound like you see any potential for burnout. But when you work at that pace, what do you do to make your downtime, or how much downtime do you actually take?
I usually take I take naps. I do. I take naps.
Okay. I love
and then,
naps.
My downtime usually either Saturday is my day where I don't do anything at all, or Sunday is the day I don't do anything at all. I usually take one. I try to take one day to not do anything, and that's usually what I consider my downtime for 1 week, just so that I can take the time to meditate and I can take the time to not think about any art project.
And what about getting away from it for like days at a time? Can you do that, or do you start jonesing out for it and want to get back to it right away? I mean, how hard is it to walk away and not do it for more than a day at a time?
Well, I have a mini sketchbook that I keep in my pocket. I have two sketchbooks in the truck. There is maybe, I know for sure everywhere I go there's a sketchbook. Or there's a piece of paper. So I'm constantly either doodling or I'm constantly jotting down ideas or concepts. So
the answer is you don't get away from it very often. Other than your day off.
It's a broken light switch. It just doesn't turn off.
And do you still feel as creative and vital and fresh and all of that now as you did, when let's say in the mid-90s, or do you see yourself? I mean, it's obviously you're very excited to do it. I mean, you obviously love doing it. Do you see any possibility of burnout? Do you see? How long do you think you can sustain this pace?
Now that I'm not 100% sure. I don't see any burnout anytime soon, because a lot of the projects that I'm working on now, I have a personal investment in them. So I want to see them flourish. I want to see them grow to the highest point that they can. So whenever it's just like a child. You want to see the child succeed. So as long as my children are succeeding, I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to continue to want to raise more children. So I really don't see myself burning out. I really don't.
Wow. Are you thinking in terms of basketball size number of kids, football team size bunch of kids, hockey or soccer team size bunch of kids?
No, actually, no. I was kind of thinking more on Noah scale.
How many kids did Noah have?
Well, if you claim all the animals, he had a gang of kids.
Well, that's cheating. I mean, come on, man. Not only that, but and then the thing is, why would Noah bring the damn mosquitoes? Okay. And flies. Why 2 flies? Yeah. Why 2 mosquitoes? I mean, those are philosophical questions we can discuss afterwards. But I mean, it sounds like your scope is really, I mean, you talk about the one program you do, but it sounds like you have some plans to be a great mentor for our youth.
Yeah. I try.
Dang. Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, a lot of people don't pass that along. Now, do you look at let's say, as you get more and more successful, what are the trappings of success, and what do those trappings do for you? I mean,
wow.
Obviously money is one trapping of success. Sometimes you ask people what that money means to them and what it's going to do for them.
Well, I guess if in regards to money, in my case, I've never really had a whole lot of it. So, having a whole lot of it now just means that everything that I've been wanting to do, now I can make it happen. The animation studio, with some money I can make that happen. Or with enough airbrushes to teach a boys and girls club how to do airbrushing. Now that I have the money, I can make that happen. So in my case, the money is only going to help me do all the things that I've been trying to do when I didn't have the money.
Sure.
Because
basically, it gives you accessibility. It gives you it gives you product, and also money gives you time, because if you don't have to worry about from moment to moment paying the bills, there's a luxury of time there. So, I mean, you sound like a cool brother to be doing all of this. And let me, I'm sorry to jump back, but okay, you mentioned that you had an adopted family and
my biological family.
Biological family, that's what I was looking for, that word. Do you mind talking about what all that was about, or? Oh
no, not at all. Because well, let's back up.
Okay.
I was adopted. I was adopted and placed in a home 2 weeks after I was born. So I didn't know anything about my biological family at all. Let me see. I found out at the age of 12 that I was adopted in the middle of a family fight. In the middle of a family fight. Yeah. I'm not gonna use the choice words that particular family member said, but there is a blog that my wife wrote that if you guys want to go out and read it, it's on blackandmissinginc.com, I think.
Tell you what, go ahead and type into, if you're in the show chat.
She's looking for it right now, and she's going to pull
the link
up.
in case. Yeah, type the link in case people want to check that out. Okay. All right. So they had the big fight, and you found out.
So I found out. I was adopted at 12. At the age of 22, I tried to find out from my adoptive father the information about my adoption. He wouldn't share any of it with me. Not until last year, in June, I finally received some paperwork from the state that they sent me the information, or the non-identifying information, about my biological mother and father. Excuse me. Once I got that information, they sent me another letter saying that they would actually open my adoption records and they would send me that information. So I received that information December 15th, if I'm not mistaken. On December 17th, I actually talked to another woman who gave me the number for my aunt, which would be my mother's her second sibling.
Okay.
And I actually called and got in contact with my aunt. And I found out that my mom had passed in 2007. And I had found out that my biological father had passed in 2008. So over Christmas, we arranged to meet, and I ended up meeting majority of my biological family for Christmas. So that was a Christmas present that I had been waiting 42 years for.
Man, that's a great story. Yeah, so as soon as your wife does have that link, we'll put it up for people who might want to check that out. So, I mean, how, just out of curiosity, how was it? I mean, all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, I take that back. At 12, excuse me, you find out you're adopted, and here you are, 84 years old, and just a little while ago, I can't do the math. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm terrible at math. Okay, maybe 83, well, somewhere in there. And all of a sudden you have this largesse of new relatives. How was the reunion? How was the get together? How was all that?
Wow. To walk into a room full of people, or to be in a room, or to grow up in a house full of people who did not look like you.
Right.
To walk into a room full of strangers who look exactly like you. There's no word that I can give you that would describe the way I felt.
That sounds pretty cool, man.
My Aunt Jackie, which is the sibling right underneath my mom, I look a lot like my aunt. Mm-hmm. And I was told that my mom and my aunt could almost be twins.
Mm-hmm.
So I was named after my grandfather, who I got a chance to meet. I found out a lot of my characteristics, or a lot of him is in me. It's just dude, I have no words really. I don't. I mean, and it's been great. You know, my youngest sister, we've become extremely close in the past 6 months.
Excuse me. Mhm.
You know, me and her have become closer.
Yeah.
In the past 6 months than the sisters that I grew up with.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's amazing.
Wow. And so, what do they think of the turn your life took, your art thing? Did that surprise them at all, or is that kind of creativity in the rest of the family?
Well, it wasn't a surprise to them at all because my mom was an artist, and to make things, I guess, not necessarily weird, but to kind of give a different spin on the whole thing. My mom was creating artwork that was centered around me, and at the same time, I was creating artwork that was centered around her because it was a woman that I had never known. So a lot of the pieces that I created were pieces of women with no faces, whereas the pictures that she was creating was pictures of her sad because I was taken.
That's got to be quite the story. I mean, we don't have to go through that now, but I mean, the reunion just sounds like such a joyful occasion that
yes,
I mean,
yes,
you couldn't have asked for a better outcome, you know. And it's not even an outcome. Basically, it's the start of something completely new. I mean, it's not an outcome per se, you know.
Yes, it's definitely.
Well, I am very happy for you. I really am. Let's jump back into the one project that you've got now. You've got the one animation project now that hopefully we'll see. You know, probably maybe summer, fall. You think?
Maybe more closer to the fall. We just got the first. I just got the first 4 minutes sent to me yesterday, and the story pretty much knocked my socks off when I first read it. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna have to look at the way that everything is going to be structured in order to be able to pull the visual to it. Because you read a story the first time, you see it one way, but when you turn around and you read it a second, maybe even a third time, you get a clear view of exactly what it is that you're seeing. And I want to make sure that the words that are coming off the page and touching my mind are exactly what my eyes and my hands actually produce.
Sure. Hang on. You're listening to Genesis Science Fiction Radio, the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show. It's a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the May 24th, 2013 edition, and we're talking to, octuplet threat, Michael Old School Mucker, who does all things visual, both analog and digital. You work in paint, you work in bits and bytes, zeros and ones. Given the fact that you're working on this new project, how do you find it easy or hard to collaborate with other people? I mean, if you're given, go ahead. Yeah,
I find it a lot easier now. You know, I guess in my younger days, I guess all artists have some sort of an ego. So I guess it's a possibility that maybe some of my ego may have gotten in the way in my younger days, but I'm not trying to compete with anyone now. I mean, I'm beyond competing. You know, the art that I create now is for me. I can care less whether you like it or not. You know, so I guess there's no more need of that ego. So now it's more or less it's about the creation process. So if I meet somebody as eager to create as I am, then whatever it is that we create will be great. Just because we both want to create something beyond or greater than ourselves.
Sure. And do you like collaborating? Do you like, that back and forth and the blending of two people's visions? Or, obviously taking a lot of your ego out of it makes that easier to do, but is it something that you like to do?
Yes. I mean, it's always if you always look at an idea from one side, then you only see it from your view.
Sure.
It's always great to at least be able to share an idea or a concept because you get it from two different perspectives immediately.
And so obviously you enjoy the back and forth that you get when you are kind of in a collaborative. Yeah. So how did you find BlackScienceFictionSociety.com? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, since Jarvis and I are in the same city at the time when he was first putting it together, he suggested that I upload some of my stuff to his site. He was in the process of developing it and building it and wanted it to be as large as he possibly could make it. So he was like, hey, I know you got some stuff just sitting around your house. Why don't you put it online so everybody else can see it?
Well, how'd you two meet?
We met just through the circuit, as being artists. There was a couple of projects that they were working on, and I was interested in the process that they were going through. So, I set up a meeting, and I met with Jarvis and his partner at the time, Billy. We all sat down and we had a sit down and we just talked. The next thing you know, we were sharing concepts and ideas and different tricks of the trade with each other. And from there, our relationship just grew.
Well, I, for one, am glad that not only are you there, but you're also, that you met him, but that you're on the site and you get to share the kinds of things that you do, because, it's only through seeing, sometimes it helps to have the encouragement of other people's success to keep you going.
Yeah.
Was there any time, from between now and when you left the Marines, where you thought you might be getting discouraged and, thinking in terms of, well, maybe this isn't right for me, or did you always just know?
No, you always, or being an artist, you always that always comes across your plate. Just because if the projects are not coming in the way that you think that they should, or the money's not coming in the way that you think that they should, but if you turn around and if you put everything on a value of that nature, then you'll never be completely satisfied.
Right.
I've come to a point to where I'm more satisfied with the creation, or I'm more satisfied with the art over the joy of being paid for it. Because if somebody wants it, they're going to have to buy it, but I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it for somebody to buy it. I'm still doing it for me.
Well, that's great. That's like the perfect blend or the perfect circumstance for an artist to be able to do your art, to be able to do it in a way that you're ultimately in control of it, and to be able to do it in a way that satisfies yourself. It seems like almost like the perfect storm of creative endeavor.
Yes.
What advice do you have what advice do you give to young kids, like in your program, things like that, in terms of helping them to visualize and manage the process of attaining being a success?
I tell them to shoot for the sun. I said anybody can reach out and grab a star.
Mhm.
So I tell them, and then to take one step further, I tell them all that I am the pressure that's going to turn you from coal to a diamond. Get used to it.
I am the pressure. Okay, so what you are is you present yourself as a catalyst, but it's still all them.
Yes.
Man, that's pretty cool. I think you're going to make a great teacher for the rest of your life. Obviously, you've enjoyed your success. Excuse me. You have, you're going to have continued success, but to be able to do that and instill it in the young, I think, is a very laudable part of being a mentor. Now, in most of your art, do you do, when you do commissions and things like that, obviously people suggest the subject matter. When you're painting, drawing, animating, digitally producing for yourself, what kind of subject matter do you present? What kind of subject matter do you like on your own, the most?
Reflections of myself.
Perfect. And you do that, and does that inspire the kids because what they're doing is they're seeing art or people or subject matter that is directly relatable to themselves?
Yes, immediately. Just because it's easier to teach when you have a picture of a child that looks like the child that you're trying to teach. They gravitate to it easier.
Mhm. Have you done any work in the comic book realm? Because a lot of people who want to get to kids, get them interested at a young age, they work in comics. How about you?
Actually, I haven't. That's one. I would definitely say that's one area that I haven't touched. I don't know why. There isn't a reason why. I just haven't. I can't explain why.
Well, there's a ton of people, at least BSFS people, black artists who are in your area, and obviously, people here on the site who are kind of in that area. Perhaps you'll run into a collaboration where that works out.
I hope so. Because I'm an artist. I try to take on, or I try to look at all projects as something new and something fresh. So if I do find another artist out there on Black Science that is willing to come up with or need a artist, I'm maybe that guy they're looking for.
Well, and the other part, I just thought about that. That's kind of limiting. Last week I interviewed a creative duo, and one lives in Canada, and the other one lives here in the U.S., and they've never met, and they've achieved quite a bit of success and notoriety and have never met. So, you're almost never, you can't predict where you're going to find out, excuse me, where you may run into, that next collaboration. And having your name out there the way you do, it's almost impossible to predict what you might attract.
Right.
But at least
well, I'm open.
I was about to say, at least the people here know that that's something that you're looking to get into.
Just think of me as the Ali of the art world. I'm taking all challenges.
Oh man, that's great. I just noticed, for those of you who may be listening and may not be in the chat room, if you're interested in getting a little bit of background about Michael's, the discovery of your biological family, the link is up in the chat room, and hopefully we can post it up elsewhere on the site so people can, take a look at find out a little bit more about you. Here's another question. When you were coming up and you were really developing, your ideas of creativity and things like that, what kinds of other art or artists, ended up inspiring you?
Oh, wow. Well, Ernie Barnes, Aaron Douglas, Boris Vallejo, Frank Frazetta, you name any of the graffiti artists who was putting graffiti out in between the years of 75 to 89. The Shirt Kings out of New York.
Sure.
I was inspired by a lot of different artists. The Transformers cartoons, Speed Racer, Battle of the Planets. It was a lot of different influences from a lot of different things, and I just was absorbing it all. The very first, or some of the things, I was always into drawing Marvel comics as a kid. I loved drawing Marvel comics as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man was one of my most manipulated characters that I would draw.
Did you do commissions for other kids? Did other kids come to you and say, hey, draw me a Spider-Man doing X or Y or whatever?
Well, yeah, that, but then a lot of the kids would be like, oh, do my name, and then do Spider-Man on top of it, or do Daffy Duck next to it, so it was a lot of graffiti stuff. So it was, and then back then, when I was in school, it was when we would take the color pencils, because we had the Prismacolor color pencils. We would do we would do the names with those color pencils, because they were real bright. The colors were real bright and vibrant, and we would do them on black paper, and then people would take them and slide them. They'd slide them into the front of their notebooks, so they would have pretty much this new graffiti design on the front of their notebook that nobody else would have.
Man, that's great. Did you ever get busted for actually doing graffiti where you shouldn't have?
You work for the police?
No. Excuse me. Wait. No. Let me rephrase that. Do you know of someone else, not yourself in particular, but someone else who might have gotten busted for doing some graffiti where they shouldn't have?
Yeah, I got a couple of friends who got busted. As a matter of fact, I have one friend who has yet to be caught, and the last couple of things that he did, he was on the news for doing a bunch of the Metro police cars downtown, and he painted something on the back of the convention center, and he fell asleep on the roof with his drunk self the day he did it. So, I mean, I'm not saying his name, but he knows who he is if he's listening.
Okay.
He woke up at 8 o'clock that morning on the roof. And was like, I need to come and climb down and went on about his business. Yeah.
Well, at least he didn't get caught.
No, he didn't get caught. No, and you hear that knocking, right? I haven't been caught. I haven't been caught up to this point. I mean, I don't do anything illegal anymore. Most of the stuff I do now is all permission. Just because it's kind of hard to explain to the kids. Daddy got arrested for some graffiti. Especially when you're like, hey, A's and B's. Don't be bad in school. Daddy got arrested for doing graffiti. And you want me to bring a A home? You got arrested for some spray paint, Daddy. That's a little too much.
Here in Chicago, for the longest time, and I think the law still might be on the books. It was illegal to sell spray paint in the city of Chicago.
Really?
Because of tagging and things like that. I mean, obviously the kids went out and got, let's see, what did they use? They used that, what's that, anti-rust, Rust-Oleum. They would get that Rust-Oleum paint. But here in Chicago, there was an ordinance for the longest time, and I have no idea where that sits now, where they could not sell spray paint in the stores. And I always wondered, during most of that time, or at least part of that time, I lived away from the city, but nowadays you see, you can obviously get paint wherever you want, and most of the time, the great graffiti I see is like when I ride the train, if there's a brick wall that faces the train, obviously that's a huge temptation. And every now and then a billboard, somebody will go ahead and climb all the way up in the middle of the night and do a billboard. Somebody mentioned that it's still in effect. And in Arkansas, you have to be over 18 to buy spray paint.
Well, that's the way it is here in Tennessee. You have to be at the age of 18 to buy it. And their reason behind it here is that they claim that the kids were huffing the paint.
Yeah, well, there is that.
Yeah. My name's in your city too.
In my city?
Mhm.
Tell me about it.
I've been through Chicago several times.
Have you? And have you left your mark, so to speak, in my city?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, have you heard of a crew in Chicago called 9 Stories High?
9 Stories? No, I have not. 9 Stories High.
Well,
no, I haven't.
Yeah. Be looking around the city for those 3 letters, NSH. Be looking for those.
All right. Yeah, when I can get more than 50 feet from my house, I'll be checking that out. Well, it is limiting. I mean, fortunately, I at least have a Mexican, Chinese, Thai, and a chocolate shop within range, where I can kind of dart out and dart back before things happen. I'm looking in the chat room here. We don't have anybody else on the phone who I could have ask questions, but does anybody have any questions that they would like for me to ask? Michael, please go ahead and type them in. And I'd be happy to do so. If not, I'll keep talking to you as long as you'll have me. How long have you been married?
I've been married now for almost 14 years.
And I take it she's very supportive of your work?
If I was to run outside in the street right now and just stand there and say I'm not moving, she would come outside and direct traffic around me and scream at me the entire time of me standing in the street.
Yeah, most guys marry way over the end of their skis. I mean, it's just something that we do.
Yeah.
So it's good that you caught them like that, or she let her be caught.
Yeah, she is definitely a pillar.
That's great. And may I ask, what does she do?
She is a manager at a bank.
Cool. I just wrote a movie script that has a foolproof plan for robbing a bank that would work one time in it, and it will work in a bank. I'm serious, man.
I would run that script by her, but I think she would have that either Vivica Fox look on her face or the Queen Latifah look across her face, and she would probably baby powder slap the right cheek.
Well, tell you what, if you, and I apologize because this is supposed to be about you, but if she's interested at least in looking at a production trailer for that movie, the movie is titled right now The Chicago Job. If you go ahead and look on my page at BSFS, there's a link there to the actual production trailer we did for the financial package. But it is truly, and I'll tell you why I know that it's a foolproof plan. I actually went to the U.S. Marshals and I said, here's my plan for robbing a bank. Would I get away with it? And they said, oh, yeah, nobody would even chase you or anything. You'd get all your money. You wouldn't have to worry about die packs or anything. And I thought, now that's a great plan. But stupid, yeah, okay, but the stupid part of that is, well, if somebody robs a bank using that plan, I might as well just make the coffee and wait for them to drop by. So, it's a double-edged, yeah. So, Jarvis just put up the link to the trailer for the Chicago Job.
Okay.
Now, you do the art, you do the animating, you do the storyboards and things like that. Have you ever, gotten into actually writing the story, doing the script or doing the, that part of it? Yeah, go ahead.
I've tried my hand at it.
Uh-huh.
I've tried my hand at it. As a matter of fact, there was a story that another friend of mine we had started on maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
We had got the characters. We got the characters set up. We started. We got everything pretty much ready. We were 19 episodes into it. He was mainly the writer.
Right.
I was more or less the suggestion guy.
Mhm.
But I've dabbled enough in the writing to understand that I'm not a writer, and that I'm gonna just stick with the art side of it.
Okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. When I try to draw, I just had to commission somebody to do the next cover of my next book because I tried to draw a fist, and I can only get like 3 fingers in there to look right, and then I go, oh, yeah, and you're supposed to have a thumb. So,
right.
You got to stick with what you know and what you're good at. Later on, I'd like to talk to you about possibly collaborating on a project because I think it'd be fun to take your art and my writing and see how they combine. It's
really?
always interesting to see what. I'm sorry.
I said, yeah, let's try it.
All right. Hang on. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, and that is the service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. Tonight is the May, or at least it's tonight now. You may listen to this some other time. This is the May 24th, 2013 episode, and we're talking to Michael Old School Mucker, who currently lives in Tennessee, with not far from our illustrious administrator for BlackScienceFiction.com website. And you two ran into each other kind of like in a networking situation and became friends, if that's,
yes.
if I can say that. Excuse me. Have you collaborated on any projects with him at this point?
Not at this moment. There's a couple of projects that we were in the process of attempting to make work. But you know, some of the things didn't work out exactly just because of, you know, different complications. Like, for instance, you know, the motion capture suit. You know,
sure.
a lot of the animation that I was doing in the beginning was all the movement was hand created. You know, so you already understand exactly how time consuming that can be. You know, so we've, you know, just trying to, you know, slimline everything that it is that we've been attempting to do, and but we do have some things that we're planning on doing in the future.
Well, and the other part of that, you know, the part B to that is all of these projects take an extreme, you know, an extremely large amount of time, effort, commitment. You know, if you're going to do something kind of half-ass, if I can just say that on the radio, oh yeah, I can. If you're going to do something half-ass, you know, it's not worth doing. And
right.
I would think that, well, you've mentioned you work both analog and digital. Which goes faster for you at this point?
At this point, I would honestly say the analog moves faster than the
sure.
digital. Right now, my workstation is basically two custom built PCs with 4 dual monitors, or with, you know, a set of dual monitors on each. You know, so the systems are not the fastest in the world. So, you know, my render time is not, you know, it's not coming out as quickly as I need it.
Yeah.
But, you know,
do you
it's a
build
labor
your own
of love.
systems? I'm sorry, do you
Yes.
build your own systems, or does somebody else do it for you?
No, I build them myself.
Okay. I was going to offer up any help that you wanted because, you know, I am BSFS's resident Japanegro, and that's something that I've been doing for years and years and years. Yeah.
Well, you know, I might have to have a conversation with the Japanegro to see exactly what I could do to tweak my system.
I'd be more than happy to help you out, man. I laugh, but the funny thing is, you know, that story about the shoes of the children of the cobbler are the ones that are the last ones to get done. You know, in a lot of ways, you know, I've been doing IT consulting for an awfully long time. You know, I started out in the computer field back in 1970, which is quite a long time ago. But one of the things that I find is sometimes my stuff ends up being at the way far end of the line in terms of fixing everything. And like you know, I've got a dual monitor, and it helps me with writing because I can have several windows open. But I've enjoyed the IT field. I mean, and when you look at what the information technologies have brought us, you know, you're in Nashville, I'm in Chicago, and we're doing a radio show together. You know, this is something that would have cost, you know, ISDN lines and a whole lot of equipment and things like that, and we're able to do it with a cell phone and a computer. So, I mean, I think that technology can be a great leveler in terms of getting things done, in terms of collaborating. I mean, obviously, we talked about the duo from last week, one in the U.S., one in Canada. I mean, virtually, if it weren't for this technology, I would say that much of what we do today just couldn't be done. It simply couldn't be done. So I enjoy the technology field, but there are times when I feel like I'm not the lead dog in a dog sled team. I could be covering the most ground out there, or I could be going the fastest. The team could be going the fastest. But if you're not the lead dog, the scenery never changes. You're always looking at someone else's, what.
Right.
So, but I do enjoy it, and I would be more than happy to talk to you about that off the air.
Okay. Hey, I got one. But, how many of the listeners honestly know what COBOL is?
Oh man, please. Oh, I'll tell you a quick story. I got busted in 1970. The whole reason why I'm in the IT field is I got busted. I was on the school's tennis team, and the tennis coach was also the computer teacher. Well, you always take your coach's class in order to get that 3-credit A, and he was teaching computers. And the statute of limitations is way over. I inserted my name and Social Security number, address, and everything from the school. I inserted it into the Chicago Board of Ed payroll file as a janitor, and I got 3 checks before I got busted. But I say that to say this, and they busted me cool. I mean, I'll tell the story if you want to hear it.
Sure, let's hear it.
Okay, so anyway, I did that. I got that. I wrote the program, got my name in there. So one afternoon, I run home from school, and my mom is sitting in the living room with a couple of suits, which, wasn't normally that unusual. She did some consulting with a lot of different people. So I run upstairs and get my play clothes because, when you're raised by a proper colored woman, you don't go out in your school clothes. So I went up, I changed into my clothes. I'm getting ready to run out the door. I run down the stairs, get ready to run up. She says, whoa, hang on. I want you to talk to these 2 guys. I'm like, Mom, look, I got to go. The boys are waiting. We got stuff to do. And I don't know what we had to do. It was probably just stupid stuff. And he said, no, this is really important. I mean, they got some really cool things I want you to talk to them about. And I said, Mom, I got to go. What is it? She said, well, it's about computers. And she knew that I was interested in computers. So I said, well, okay, I can listen for a minute. And I sat down, and they started telling me about, essentially they told me about time-sharing systems, the big mainframes, the big IBM Iron. And they said, and they were telling me, how it all works out. Oh, well, it's very expensive, and IBM never sells their computers. And so when you have an IBM computer, you run programs for everybody. That way you can make more money, blah, 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 pay your lease. I'm thinking, okay, and they say, yeah, like one of the things that we do, is we do all the parking tickets for the city of Chicago. Oh, that's pretty cool. And they said, yeah, we do this, that. And they named some of the jobs that they did. And finally they said, and sometimes we do payroll for people. And so when they said payroll, this little bead of sweat started going down the back of my neck. And all the time that they're talking, my mom is just kind of sticking a knife in and twisting it. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that amazing what they can do with computers? And finally I said, yeah, when we do payroll for people, sometimes, to make sure that the computer's doing everything right, we do an audit. You know what an audit is? No, I don't know what an audit is. And so they said, well, an audit is when you go and you look at the paperwork and you look at what the computer does and make sure that everything is okay and they don't make a mistake. So when they started doing that, and they said, yeah, when we run these audits a few times a year, and every now and then we find something. And of course, now that bead of sweat had migrated from the back of my neck to the sides of my face. And they kept talking, and just before they knew I was about to cry, because I knew I was busted, they burst out laughing. And they pulled out these printouts, those big books. And so they pulled out these printouts, and they said, okay, so this is how we found you. I mean, no recriminations, no beating on me or anything. This is how we found you. You were over here, and you got these 3 checks, but you weren't over here. You didn't exist over here. This number looks like an employee number, but it's not really a real employee number. How did you do that? And my mom says, yes, I'd be very curious to know, how did you do that? So I ran upstairs, and I got the punch cards, because back then you had to do all your programs on punch cards, and I brought them in, and I started showing the guys. I said, no. Next Thursday, either you and either your mom or dad, you come down to IBM. And they said, okay. I said, okay. And they said, we'll see you there at 4 o'clock. So my dad took off work, picked me up from school, and we went down to IBM. My dad's the Japanese professorial type. At the time, I guess he was running the Department of Biochemistry for one of the bigger hospitals here. So we go there. The older guy is downstairs. He signs us in. We go up to a conference room, and I'm sitting there wondering what the hell's going on. My dad's cool. He's just smoking a pipe and reading the paper. So people start trickling in, and after about 25 people came in, the 2 suits from my living room were there, and they started handing out printouts to people and stuff like that. And people kind of looked at them and stuff, but they were really wondering what the hell this guy and this Kibler. And so the older guy says, okay, I'd like everybody's attention. I want to introduce our guest. This is Dr. Hayashi over here. He's the director of biochemistry at Rush Medical Center, blah, 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 blah. And this is his 15-year-old son, William. William, tell these guys a little bit about yourself. And, you know, I don't know what's going on. I'm scared to death. And I said, well, I'm a virgin. Well, no, I didn't say that. I said, I like tennis. I'm in high school, blah, blah, blah. And he said, okay. And then the older guy says, okay, I want everybody to take a look at William because right now he's the smartest guy in the room. And I'm thinking, I am getting my ass beat when I walk out of this room because everybody looked at me and they were all hostile. And he said, I'd like you guys here, since you run the machine, could you guys tell me how William got 3 payroll checks from the Board of Ed and didn't get caught until after he got those 3 checks? And so then the room got deadly quiet. And he said, if you look at the printouts, there's his program. And so they start going through them. And then one guy, you know, came over and he, like, pulled on my shirt. I said, I'm not going with you. You know, my dad said, go over there and see what he wants. So he said, okay, I see how you did this, but what made you do that? And they had all the documentation there. I said, well, it's right here. And so I'd say within about 2 seconds of that happening, I was like one of the guys. But I was still, you know, but they scared me to death. So that was how I got started in IT industry because, and the reason why I tell this story is I see COBOL and Fortran up, and I learned Fortran. And then they wrote letters of recommendation. I had to work after school at either the Board of Ed or IBM to work off my money. And, those checks, a 2-week check for a janitor was $84 or $85. So a janitor was making about a little over $40 a week back then in $1970, for those of you who are quite that old. And you know, that was pretty decent money because I'm pretty sure that was a union position at that time. Yeah. So anyway, they wrote letters of recommendation, and I started going to night school classes at a business college here, and that's where I learned COBOL. And Fortran I had learned at school. And all of those early languages, this was even before BASIC. BASIC came later. And that's how I got in the IT field. I've been doing that since 1970. I've been in and out, in and out, in and out, and, you know, had my own consultancy in 1982. So, you know, I'm so sorry I took up all that time on your night. But that's
cool. That's okay. That was an interesting story.
That's how I got, and I'll tell you the last part. So the last part is, I'd say about a month later, my dad gave me a note. He said, give this to your division teacher. I'm taking you out of class on Thursday. We got something to do. So Wednesday night, my mom says, okay, let's pack your stuff. And what stuff? You know, where am I going? She said, well, you're going on a trip with your dad. And I thought, oh, my dad's lecturing someplace. So Thursday, we go out to O'Hare. We jump on a plane. We get to, I don't know, LaGuardia or Kennedy. I don't remember what airport it was, in New York. And I thought it was so cool because as we walk down there to get our luggage, there's a limo guy holding up a sign that says Dr. Hayashi. And that was like the coolest thing I had ever seen in my life. Because, you know, first of all, I'd never been in a limo. And second of all, to have a guy waiting for my dad. So we get in there, and I notice on the signs that we're going to White Plains. I'm thinking, White Plains? I mean, I didn't know what that was. And then we pull up in front of IBM. So we get checked through. We go into a building. The older guy of the 2 suits who were at my place, he's there. He signs us in. And we go to a much bigger conference room. And so I'm kind of thinking, all right, I know what's going on here. And so now these are guys, half of them wear suits. The other half, you know, they've got the lab coats, the insulated lab coats, because they're working in the room with the computer where it's too cold. And he pulled off the same thing in New York. And he said, Dr. Hayashi, William, tell a little bit about yourself. And, you know, I felt a little better because I knew I wasn't going to get killed. And he said, okay, I want everybody in here to tell me how William Hayashi broke into our IBM 360 and got 3 payroll checks from the Board of Ed before we caught him. And then the room got really frosty. But we had a great, afternoon and evening in New York, so the whole thing was pretty cool. And it was pretty cool to be shoved in front of IBM like that. But that was what happened. I broke in, I did something that hadn't been done, and back then, fortunately, they didn't arrest people and like throw them under the jail for doing that for doing hacking.
Right.
But that's how I got in. And it was about a month before I graduated from high school, I actually got my associate degree in computer programming and data processing. So I graduated from high school and already had an associate degree, and I went and tested out of classes in college. And computers are cool, and I enjoy them. I enjoy making the tools that work. Now, I do some graphic design. I do nothing like you do, but your needs are much, much bigger than mine. And I'm learning more about it, rendering and coloring and texture and stuff like that. And it's just amazing what they can do with a computer now. You can do animation now that is virtually, you can still tell it's been digitally conceived. But the motion and things like that, with motion capture and stuff like that, look just like people, just like film. Is that the part that appeals to you the most, that you're getting closer and closer to being able to do live action in a completely digital construct?
Yes, because there's a lot of things that you want that you can do in a digital realm that you cannot do in real life.
Sure.
Just because of the safety that's involved, and so especially if you're working something low budget, then you definitely don't want to try to see if you can blow your friends up in the rented SUV. Not good.
Yeah. Now, how many features have you worked on?
I have my own personal features. There is a total, I think, of 9 maybe.
Okay.
The original piece that I was working on was going to be a concept of 13 short stories that all revolved around the 4 elements of hip-hop. Since it was so large that I basically had to give up on it because it was taking over my life. Sure. But I've done some other stuff for some other companies and clients here in town. I would say if I had to say that there was an actual number, I'd say maybe 25 to 30 different productions that I've worked on.
Wow! And somebody wants to know, for this current project you're working on, how many frames per second are you working? Is this going to be rendered? I'm thinking of actually taking this one at maybe 24 to 29. It just depends on exactly. Once again, like I said, I really only have the first 4 minutes, so I'm not exactly sure. I'm still deciding whether or not I'm going to do this completely 3D or if it's going to be a mixture of 3D and 2D. So I'm still not 100% sure exactly which direction this project is going in yet. Mm-hmm. And what about your own projects? Do you have a preferred kind of a set of man, I wish I would have learned English as an original language. Do you have a set criteria that you feel more comfortable working in? Frame rate, resolution, things like that.
Well, always your frame rate, to get the best fluidity or to get the best motion, you want to go, or I try to push, 29, 29.97 or 30. Just to get the best motion.
Right.
But if you're doing something, for the internet, then it's best to keep your frame rate as low as possible, so that you get the best transfer as far as the information is bandwidth wise.
Yeah. But you want your render. Yeah, you want your render to look good.
Right. So. My render, I always try to produce my renders at the highest quality I can get my renders, just because I want people to look at them, either on their cell phone, their laptop, or their big screen television through one of their game systems.
Mm-hmm. And the project that you're working on now, you know so little about it, you're not sure exactly how that's going to shake out. Not yet. I'm still, I originally had one idea in mind as far as the set and the way that the architecture was going to look. Sure. After reading some of the treatment, or some of the dailies that I've gotten up to this point, I think all that's about to change, just because the way that the direction that the story is going in is going to require that to change. Yeah. It sounds like you've got a whole world ahead of you that's going to you're going to be able to experiment, and I'm sure you're going to be able to do a lot of cool things, especially when you look at how the tools that are available are evolving so quickly. Let me ask you this. Do you work in the Microsoft world, or do you work in the Apple world?
I work in the Microsoft world right now, unfortunately.
Uh-huh. And why do you say that?
Well, why do I say the unfortunate side about it?
Yes, yeah, I was just curious.
You know how PCs operate. PCs turn around, and depending on what is all installed on the PC's checking to make sure everything is running. Whereas with the Apple world, the system is only running what's actually running. So the Apple systems run a little bit more efficient than PCs, even though you can run PCs for months and not have an issue out of them, as long as they're not connected to the internet. Whereas with an Apple system, you know what I mean? As long as it's not connected, you don't have to go through all the updates and things of that nature. The PC will run just fine. But as soon as you put it on the net, it's gonna look for an update. It's gonna download something, and the next thing you know, you have problems.
Well, for systems like yours, especially for production systems, I always turn the automatic updates off, because you lose control of your operating system that way. One of the things, though, that the total cost of ownership and the price for entry using Apple systems is correspondingly much higher for the same specs that you would get. But obviously there's a stability issue there too. Apple has a much more rigid set of criteria for people who create hardware and software for their platform. So, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Would you consider, working in a mixed household? Or
I would love working in the mixed household would be great, because you could use the Apple side as my render stations.
Right.
But still be able to create, everything that I would, or create everything on the PC side and then render it out on the Apple side, just because of the fact that QuickTime has the HD plug-in already in it, whereas, you have to go through a couple of bells and whistles in order to get it to work right, on the PC, with Premiere or After Effects or whatever software, or whatever output software that you would use.
Sure. What do you use, by the way?
Software-wise, I use a combination of about 9 different programs.
Okay.
I use Lightwave. I use ZBrush, Poser. I use a little bit of Vue.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of 3D Studio Max. It just, once again, it depends on what's needed. For most of my video, I'll use Premiere or After Effects with a mixture of particle illusions. So it just depends. It just really depends. I even, for the simple stuff, something that's not really complicated, I'll go all the way back and use an old program that's called Swish. I'm not exactly sure if you're familiar with it, but back when Flash was really complicated, when it first came out, and nobody really understood Flash, they came out with a lesser version of it called Swish. And you could still do all the things that Flash would do, but it would do it so much simpler that it would take you, a third of the time that it would normally take you in Flash.
Mm-hmm.
So for simple stuff that I, need to, spit out within, an hour or so, I'll go to Swish and do some simple stuff in Swish, import it into, one of the video editing softwares, and then spit it back out.
It is a complicated process, but the cool part is that there are so many digital tools being made available every day,
Yeah.
And that's and now it's not just the purview of engineers who are making these tools. You have artists, being able to bridge that gap and create those tools as well. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
5 years from now, hopefully I see me and my wife somewhere on a beach throwing coconuts at each other because we're lost.
Okay. All right. Hey, look, there are a lot of different deviant sexual things out there. I try not to judge myself. I mean, So, basically you're looking for more success to give you maybe more revenue, which gives you more freedom to do the things that you really want to do.
Well, I mean, if you want to take it that way, then I'm looking for more kids to not only influence me so that I can influence them so that their lives will be better than mine.
And we're not talking just your biological offspring, are we?
Not my children. No, I mean my kids are going to get it, even if they don't want to get it, because they're always here. So when they hear me tell it to another child, I turn around and I give them the eye.
All right. What kind of dad are you? Are you a hard dad? Are you an easy dad? I mean, what are we talking about here?
I try to be the balanced dad. I try to be. Now sometimes that becomes the comical individual, or sometimes it becomes I turn into the Marine. So it really depends. But my kids are with me everywhere I go, so they see all aspects of me. So I've never sugarcoated and I've never babied my girls, and I never did the same thing with my son either. So they get it like adults get it.
Nothing wrong with that.
So
how would you feel? Go ahead.
I guess I would be the Joe Clark dad.
Okay. Well, how would you feel if one of your kids wanted to go into the service, maybe follow in your Marine footsteps?
I would tell them no. I would honestly tell them no. The Marines, for me, the Marines was an escape from what I grew up in.
Sure. Me
going to the Marines was me getting away from everything that I was trying to get, or everything that I hated, basically. So now I wouldn't turn around and tell my kids not to go to the military or not to go to the Marines, because one, there's nothing for them to run away from. Or if they wanted to go into the military, then I would give them my best suggestion and tell them to join the Air Force, because they wouldn't have to worry about anybody throwing bullets at them.
I got nothing.
Oh, you didn't get that?
No, I got it.
Oh.
No. I don't really have a comment for that, because it's tough. I mean, right now, the biggest incentive for people to join a military service is the fact that there are so few good-paying jobs out there, and there are far fewer opportunities for people to get advanced training in certain fields. And a lot of people are turning to the military because of that, because I don't want to name a certain party that has screwed this country up, and I don't want to go and point a well-aimed figure at Wall Street that has blown up an entire world's economy, and they did it with impunity. I mean, nobody's been punished. Nobody's, practically nobody's gone to jail for turning, America into little more than a third world country. But I mean, unfortunately, the only place where you can go where you don't have to come out $50,000 in the hole or $250,000 in the hole for going to college is the military. So, yeah, you see it, you don't want your kids to have to do it,
But the choice of the branches, that's the one thing that you definitely want to make sure that you point out, especially with, the combat and the non-combat jobs. The Marines and the Army automatically are combat situations. So if you want to possibly go out and get yourself injured or not come back at all, then those are the two branches that for all the people that want to be gang members and want to be thugs on the street, I suggest they can join the Marines or join the Army and go out and kill as many people as they want to. But if for the individual that does not want that in life and is actually looking to better themselves, I would honestly tell them to go to the Air Force, because the Air Force is all about the technical side of the military. You learn the things that you learn in the Air Force far surpass what some college kids are learning at MIT.
Sure.
So the benefits of getting out of the military, from being in the Air Force in regards to being in the Army or being in the Navy, your chances are 4 times better, just because of what you learn while you're in the Air Force. So if any kids, that would be my suggestion. And if I want to go, if you don't want to go to the Air Force, then don't go to the military at all.
Yeah. You've been listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the May 24th, 2013 edition, and we've been talking to Michael Old School Mucker, ex-Marine. Actually, you're never really an ex-Marine. You're a Marine all your life, are you not?
Yes, you are.
Yeah,
I have Marines. I still have Marines screaming at me as I'm driving down the street.
Okay. And father of 3, accomplished analog and digital artist, and quite an interesting guy. I want to thank you, Michael, for having made my job very, very easy tonight. And you're interesting for those people. Oh, go ahead.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. For those of you who are interested in taking a look at what Mike has done, you can go to worksofmike, MIKE.com, no www, and take a look at his works there. We're going to try to get any appearances or things that he'll be doing out and about on the event calendar for BSFS, so check that out in case you might have an opportunity to run into him. And for those of you who have listened, I want to thank you for being here. And as always, every Friday night, the show starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and so you can check your clock and your time zone accordingly. And be sure to tell your friends, because all of these shows are turned into a podcast. So if you do miss one and you see somebody you like, see somebody you're interested in, please, if you are interested, somebody else is going to be interested. So feel free to tell people. I encourage you to tell people about the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show. So on behalf of BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website, I want to thank everybody for listening, and I hope to hear you all again next week, or at least see you all next week. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody else, and good night.